So, Constantine from Inside Russia and I disagree about what just happened yesterday, and that's perfectly fine. And I want to highlight where we disagree, not to be disagreeable, but to just offer you extra context and perception about what's going on. And like yesterday, I put out this video here, Never Be Fooled Again, where I was talking about, yeah, you should do that. You should listen to people on the other side. So I'm going to show you what he said, juxtaposed to what I was talking about, where I said, this is the best news that I've heard in a year. I was really encouraged yesterday. And so I was explaining what I saw, and he was explaining what he saw in this video here. Will Trump bring peace to Ukraine or save Putin? And that's the video that we're about to watch. So we're going to watch this together, and I put it at the right place here. So let's just listen to what he has to say and his arguments, and then I'll chime in. And again, I'm not fighting with him. I'm just saying he sees this. Here's what I see. Here's how I would enhance or say maybe I see something a little different, but it's good to hear both sides, and you want to inform yourself. Okay, here we are.
What has he done? Number one, Donald Trump has stopped adding new sanctions against Russia, in particular Russia's oil tanker shadow fleet. He has put a freeze on new hirings in all federal agencies in the United States, including the Treasury. The US Treasury has a department called Foreign Asset Control, which is responsible for tracking Russian assets and coming up with new sanctions against Russia. The last Russia-related action was taken on January 15th, and it's easy to check. Just go to the website, Foreign Asset Control. So, January 15, nothing since then.
Okay, so let's stop and talk about that there. He's correct on both counts, on the sanctions and the foreign asset control. Now, part of this is because of DOGE, D-O-G-E, the Department of Government Efficiency, taking a sledgehammer approach like USAID and all that kind of thing to regulations rather than a surgical scalpel to cut out things that they don't like. But it is, in fact, having a potentially negative effect on Russian sanctions and tracking this. And we hasn't really done much yet, but it probably will over time if it's not restored. And so he's right about that. Now, I don't know that it won't be restored. It may very well be. We'll see in time. But he's right to point that out. But I don't think it is... well, it may be intentional. I don't know. It's not necessarily intentional is what I'm saying. It's part of the sledgehammer of DOGE. Okay, let's keep going.
Before, there were Russia-related actions taken almost every week, and it can be clearly tracked on the website. So Russia-related actions work has been paralyzed.
And that's fair.
And with
what he's saying here is fair. We'll see what happens over time, whether that comes back or whether that... And my guess is that it will come back, as General Kellogg was talking about. We're at like a 3 of 10 of sanctions. We certainly can do more, and they'll probably do some more in some time. But again, I'm not contradicting him or saying he's wrong. He's absolutely right. The question is, why did it happen, and what will happen moving forward?
Goal of further cutting costs, it is obvious that the Foreign Asset Control Department will slow down taking further Russia-related actions.
That might very well be. We just don't know yet. But
this is a
he might be right.
Win for Putin. He is the most vulnerable now.
Mm-hmm.
The Foreign Asset Control started working very efficiently against Russia's shadow oil tanker fleet in the second half of 2024, and now they need anything but slowing down.
And that really happened in January of 2025, in the very last weeks of Biden's administration. And those actions had put a massive dent in what's going on. Like I was just talking about this recently. India refused to accept 1 million barrels of sanctioned Russian oil from, that just happened. This is in the news today. And okay, so that's where we are right now. So he's not wrong that that has happened, but it happened very late. Now, there's been lots of sanctions over time, but the ones that really made a dent were in the very end of the Biden administration.
But its work has been halted, paused.
Mm-hmm.
Putin can now catch his breath, get some energy, regroup, rename oil tankers, change the owners of tankers, replace them with fresh owners, remove those owners who have been placed under personal sanctions, find new tankers, find new banks to do transactions, find new shipping companies, and so forth. He has gotten a much needed break.
And the longer this goes on, the more that will be true.
A huge, huge, huge win for Putin. Number two, Donald Trump has ended a task force within the US Department of Justice that was targeting assets of Russian oligarchs. Well, I am not sure whether the task has been disbanded or it simply has been geared towards a different goal. But it's definitely not hunting down Russian oligarchs.
Theoretically, as I understand, it was disbanded and those people were redeployed to other places within the Department of Justice to focus on cartels and other international crime. I would imagine international crime would include Russian oligarchs that were involved in international crime, but clearly this task force has been disbanded.
Now, Russian oligarchs are friends and loyal supporters of Vladimir Putin. They finance the war in Ukraine. They circumvent sanctions. They help import military technologies. They sell Russia's natural resources, and bring much needed dollars to Putin and his budget. They launder Vladimir Putin's money. They are the disease. And the US government has given up on fighting them. And it did a very good job before. Now it's done. No more. The task force is not hunting down Russian oligarchs.
Okay, he's right. That task force has been
This is
disbanded.
another big victory for Vladimir Putin. These two things that I just mentioned, these two actions, are a catastrophe. Well, not really. Not on the scale of catastrophe. What it is, certainly a bad sign for Ukraine. It outlines the direction the USA is moving towards.
Okay, and now this is where he and I would potentially disagree in that I don't know that this is a big sign of anything. I don't. The first one is Doge, and the second one, I get why you'd have to redeploy assets, but I'm not sure that. So I see things a lot more optimistically than he is here. But you still ought to hear this and factor this in. That you ought to understand the big picture of what's going on.
Putin, for the first time in 3 years, is victorious. Now he gets out and sends everyone a message, inside Russia and outside. And it has been going on for a couple of weeks now. And of course, it's not a direct message, but it's, that's what he means. And the message is, I was right. I promised we will prevail. We will be victorious. We will get up from our knees. And I have delivered. The sanctions in the USA are on pause now. There's no one to take care of them, to continue them. The oligarchs can now sleep well. I have delivered on my promises, the promises I have made before. And he has delivered. He has delivered, all right.
So I'm not sure if that's actually a fair view from Putin's point of view. I'm not saying that Constantine is saying something, just I mean, like I understand what he's saying, but I think Putin may be surprised over time if he has that, if he does genuinely hold that point of view.
I consider it's pretty solid victory for Putin.
And in the short term, that I understand why you'd think
Before I jump
that.
to number 3, Donald Trump has demanded Ukraine to supply the USA with rare earth in exchange for further military and financial assistance. I quote Donald Trump. I told them that I want the equivalent of like $500 billion worth of rare earth, and I have essentially agreed to do that. And he's right. President Zelensky acknowledged and he said that Ukraine agrees. Now, this is something I didn't see coming, and it is shocking to me. Ukraine is a small, peaceful country, a victim. It got attacked by a bully neighbor, which is threatening not just the existence of Ukraine, but the existence of current world order. The world immediately jumped to help when the invasion began,
Hmm.
and USA led the help crusade. Just recall 2022. The United States of America proved its leading position in the world. It did the right thing. It started helping Ukraine. And after 3 years, the USA completely changes its stand and demands something valuable from Ukraine in return for aid: rare earth. The message the USA has sent is very simple: we stop all the help, but we can sell you weapons and ammo. We can sell you everything. We can sell you dollars. It's a transactional based relationship now.
Yes, he's right. It is a transactional based relationship, but he's very discouraged by it, and I'm very encouraged by it because we look at it from different angles.
America, where is your dignity?
Hmm.
I find it very low.
Yeah, and I find that to be frustrating as well. Like, I would like them to do the right thing for the right reason, but if they're not doing the right thing for the right reason, if Trump's still doing the right thing for the wrong reason, I still want him to do the right thing, which is to still support Ukraine.
The image of the country has been served a pretty darn big blow. That transactional relationship falls right into line with Putin's transactional model, where there are no values, just transactions, just profits. America, I knew, ran on kindness, on volunteering and charities. Putin has been forcing this transactional model on everyone, and America is demanding rare earth in exchange for the aid. It's definitely a step towards the brave new Russian world where the strong ones rule. And
So that's interesting that he sees it that way. I don't see it that way. I see it as I wish that the US would do the right thing because they should be supporting a democracy that has been invaded by Russia. But short of that, if they're still going to support for the transactional thing, I think that's still good that they're supporting. And so that's why I'm optimistic and he's much more pessimistic, seeing the US somewhat decline in those values.
the strong ones can just blackmail the weak ones. This rare earth demand is definitely a victory for Putin worldwide. It's not just a victory for Putin. Well, it is, but it's not that much of a big deal for him, I think. What it is a loss for the West. It's a loss of values. It's a loss of this model of life that is based on kindness. That's what it is. At the same time, it's a huge loss for the USA. In my opinion, the USA shot itself in its own foot here. And there's also second part of the story, and it's actually a blow to Putin.
Okay, and here's where we agree.
You see, Trump demanded rare earth from Ukraine in exchange for military and financial aid, and Ukraine agreed. It agreed to exchange its rare earth for American weapons and dollars. It means that the armament supplies will continue.
Hmm.
And that was what Russia was was afraid the most. It's clearly losing the weapons battle.
And so on this point, we actually agree. We agree that it is a victory for Ukraine in spite of the loss of values or loss of face for the United States in front of the world because of the deal, or in spite of other things that have gone on. So with that, this is how you balance this. You look at Constantine and what he has to say, you look at me and what I have to say, and you try to make sense of it. Like, you find the place where you think one position or the other is right, or there's some kind of hybrid or something along those lines. But you ought to be informed. And I appreciate that you're watching this video now and being willing to be informed. All right. So with that, thank you for your time, and put your comments in the comments below what you think. Is Constantine right? Am I right? Or are we both right? Or how we're both wrong? We could both be wrong for that matter. So put that in the comments below. Thank you for your time. And thank you, Constantine, for your thoughtful deliberation as well, because this is helpful for us to understand the big picture. Thank you for the time, the likes, the shares, and the subscribes. And thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.